So yeah, you want to live like here, like
That's where I need to live?
Yeah.
Is this good?
yeah.
I could live here.
Yeah, live is your home. Welcome to another episode of The Rake. We have a very special guest this evening.
Yeah, and he'll be here later, but for now we just have Mike Del Vecchio.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But he
That's a
couldn't
very
make
Jesse
it.
approved joke.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike Del Vecchio, a longtime Vegas cash game reg, just got 10th in the Aussie Millions, been on a crazy tournament heater, and our co-host has joined us.
Come on up, crew.
Better late than never, Crouton. Come on, buddy. Come on.
Oh, man. Notice when we have a guest, he needs to like make a late entrance so that we make a big deal about him.
Yeah,
He's
it's
like,
funny.
Yeah.
When it's just the
Come
two
on
of us.
Oh, the special guest is here.
Yes,
Yes.
He
exactly.
made it eventually.
And he made it. Oh, baby. He's also my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, I mean, I came up online like way back in the day, and then eventually I played some like high stakes private games in New York City for just like a couple months, and then I moved out to Vegas like right before Black Friday, grinded a ton, had some really good results, then had some really bad results, and I went back and forth for a while, and now I wound up a professional tournament player, I guess.
That's so opposite. I feel like what usually happens is like people play tournaments, they have a big score, they have some money, and they're like, all right, I'm going to keep grinding these tournaments. Then they realize that tournaments are like a variance fest and they make people miserable, and then they get into cash and like thrive. But you're kind of doing it the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, tournaments are just so much more fun though. You know, and
True.
especially like we were sort of talked before, like I sort of like want to get out of poker a little bit. So it's like to sit there and just grind cash is like, it's difficult, you know? And I don't know how much I have in me of that. I've been trying to play cash like since I got back from Australia. I haven't played a single hand of cash. You know, it's like every day I'm just like, oh, like I should play cash today. And then I either register a tournament or I just sit at home and
Do you think part of it is like bankroll size? Because I know when I'm struggling with my bankroll, cash seems valuable. I'm like, okay, I'll grind. I'll like make a few $100 a day, whatever. And I feel like people, when they hit a big tournament score or like they are doing well, it's hard to like care about one day of cash games.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But even like on a big downswing, like right now, we had sort of mentioned like I started my own business. I've put the vast majority of my money into that business and could really use, you know, just like $800 to $2,000 a day in perpetual income.
You still don't want to play.
You know, but I still like, even like, it's so silly. Like I'll like reg an $1,100 tournament, you know, and also, so like I'm backed for tournaments and I have all my own action for cash games. So it's like, I'm in makeup right now and I'm playing an $1,100 tournament where like first place, like, will barely get me out of makeup, you know? So it's like, I literally can't put money into my pocket playing this tournament.
And you still prefer the tournaments.
I'll still play the 1,100 over just like sitting at 510 and just like, like another day of this. Like, I just don't have it in me right now.
Do you think it's the type of players that are, I know for me anyway, like sitting in a tournament, it's more social. People are different. Sitting in a cash game, people are like headphones and like kind of hate each other. And it's like not that fun.
Yeah. I noticed like that, like, I'm really bad at not being on my phone. And so like I'm way worse in cash though. Yeah. Tournaments, like, especially once you start to go deeper, it starts to like really matter. Whereas just like any given hand in cash, unless it happens to be a really big one, which like happens maybe once every hour, you know, like unless it's like a really big pot, it's just like, it just doesn't matter. And I just can't possibly pay attention. But
I feel you.
I've been trying to get better. It's actually, I didn't make any like New Year's resolutions, but like posthumously, I decided that was going to be my New Year's resolution, where I just like stay off my phone as much as possible when I'm playing poker. Yeah. Because it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, just like being able to focus whatsoever. I find it hard to sit there these days for more than 6 hours and like in anything. But I feel like I'm the opposite of you, where it's like I'm in a tournament and it's just like you grind all day long. We were just talking about this, and then you just get coolered and you're out. You lose a flip and you're out.
Yeah.
Whereas cash, it's like, you know, you're probably not going to go 3-4 sessions in a row without winning. So you're probably going to...
Oh, I've definitely gone way longer than 3 to 4. But
I mean, on average. But like tournaments, like probably 10, 12, 15 without cashing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just like so
Fun
mind-numbing
fact,
to me.
I started out my WSOP career. So just WSOP events, I think it was 0 for 32. Something like that. welcome to the
they're
World Series.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like stretching multiple years because I didn't fire them all at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was probably because I was playing them pretty shitty. So
Yeah.
But I mean, so is everyone else. Right? A lot of the like Saturday events, like 1500s and stuff, it's not like you don't deserve to go 0 for 32, even if you're just literally on Twitter all day.
yeah, back then I was paying attention. I was probably paying too much attention. Back then those were in my prime, try and win like every single pot day.
Yeah.
Like just can't let anybody else win more than like an eighth of the pots. I just need to be in all of them and just like
it works well for you though. Do you remember we both made a run at like a win
I remember
1600
that.
or something, and we're down to like 20 people or whatever, and first is a lot, like 200k. And you were really nice to me. This is why I don't know why I pick on you so much, because we get it in, I think it was like button versus small blind in a spot that was like, to me, seemed like a cooler, but I ended up having like ace 10 versus jacks.
I remember
and
this
I
end
win
very
and I
well.
felt back. So I'm like, oh, that's my friend. And he's just like, I would have stuck that in too. High five and leaves. Just like, no problem. He's like aware. He's like,
you said something bad, and I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna 3-bet the shit out of you that hand. That was a really good 4-bet jam, you know? Like,
yeah, no,
don't worry about it.
So surprised. I'm like, most people are butthurt and they just go like, oh, stupid girl playing poker, and like walk out. But he was like, oh, like I definitely deserve to get that jammed on me, because he's so active that like you start to widen your ranges, and I'm like, oh, ace 10 here is like magic. Let's go.
I vividly remember too thinking like right before I peeled jacks in that spot.
You're like,
oh, I'm gonna
yes.
3-bet really like this spot. So when you 4-bet and I had jacks, I was like, well, and then you had ace 10. And you sucked out, but like, yeah, it was a good jam, you know. It was like I was gonna be way too wide there, and you were just gonna punish me.
Yeah.
But I had jacks, so
Yeah.
and then you punished me.
Perfect storm.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, but that shows like some mental strength though, not just be like, oh, I lost, that person must have played bad. Like I usually do play bad, just that one time I didn't, and it was nice to hear that. I wanted to ask you just on the whole thing of tournaments. So Aussie Millions has been your like run good zone. This is like the third year in a row you've gotten through a field. I think it was like 820 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is huge. And, you know, there's a lot of great players who come to the Aussie Millions. So you've made 2 final tables, including chopping last year with Bryn Kenny.
Yeah.
And then this year came in 10th. Like, do you have anything to say about it? Is it something, do you just feel amazing when you walk in that room?
It, you know? I got a lot of things to say. I mean, first off, like Australia is just like awesome. If you have the ability to travel there and play just like one of the Aussie Millions, just like do it. It's so much fun. The city of Melbourne is so cool. The food's amazing. The weather's great because it's during the winter here. Like all around, just like slam dunk tournament stop. And then the field's really good. There's some very strong players, but there's tons of just like much weaker players. And so I love it there. First off, it feels great to walk in every year. You know, like it's awesome.
It's the one thing poker players agree on. I've never heard someone say anything
I
bad.
hate it there.
They just say it's like a little expensive. That's the only negative, and literally 100% of poker players agree on one thing.
And the Aussie dollar is so cheap now.
I've heard that's just like super soft too. Like just like
definitely.
just in general, just the cash
this
games,
year,
everything.
It was a bit tougher. Oh, so I've never played a hand of cash there. He's cute. I've never played a hand of cash there, but this year I would say like the tournaments were a bit tougher because they had Carry Cats had a high roller series right after. So you got a bunch of like the 100K regs that wouldn't have come out otherwise. But it's still just like such a great field and stuff.
So what about that event specifically do you think gives you an edge, or do you feel, I don't know, you must have something different going on for 3 times almost final tabling?
I mean, at the end of the day, I ran really good all 3 years. You know, it's not like I just like have some super sick secret, just like hoodwinking everyone in Australia.
Share it with us,
like,
Mike. Why won't you tell us?
I wish I could convert the secret to the US as well. You know, like I play a lot more tournaments here than I do in Australia.
My run good spot was the Taj.
Ooh.
I'm like, I'll never win again.
You hate to see it.
Oh my God.
You hate to see it.
Mine's nothing. Okay. Anyways, so what initially made you want to get into tournaments and make that jump?
I guess like, so like, yeah, I was always a cash reg and all of my friends were cash regs more or less. And then they just started doing really well in tournaments. You know, it was like, I saw Jesse and Russell just like co-final table the main. And I was like, shit, like if they could do it, like I could probably do it too. And I could not do it for like 5 years. So I lost a lot of money, like trying to do it for like quite some time. And but I stuck with it, and I felt like I kept coming closer and closer until I eventually broke through. But it's so weird, like you never really know, like people with minus 20% ROIs have great results, and people with 100% ROIs have shit results, especially when you're like most of the tournaments you're playing. It's not until you start to get to the higher buy-ins that you see a lot of these like smaller field tournaments. It's like if you go to the World Series and you play a 1K, there's going to be 4,000 people in there. And like just this year, I remember I played one and I got to the final like 1% of the tournament. You know, you have 120 starting stacks.
Yeah.
I call them crushed dreams.
I like that too. I'm like 1 soul, 2 souls, 3 souls.
Yeah, so you just have 120 starting stacks, and then like something bad happens, you bust, and you get like 8 buy-ins.
Yeah.
You're just like, what the hell just happened? Like I knocked out equivalent of 120 people. I got 8 buy-ins. So once you start to get higher and higher stakes, the field sizes tend to go down. But yeah, I mean, even 800 people, you know, it's like these are big fields, and you really need to like punch through, which is why like Aussie was so brutal this year. It's like I sort of said like I have like so much invested in my like business right now, and just like a big score there would have been real nice.
Yeah.
You know, but
do you want to talk about your business at all? Do you want to promote something?
I have an amusement company downtown. I can't really talk about our big project. I was actually really sad. I asked my business partners what I could say, and they basically just said, don't say anything. So I would love to shill my business to everybody. But yeah, I mean, more or less, we're just like one building. We're going to have like a bunch of like things to do in downtown Las Vegas. It'll be really cool. We already have some. So if you want to jump on the hang bar ever.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Come on down. But yeah,
cool.
I would love to shill the big project, but unfortunately I can't.
Okay.
Coming soon to a theater near you. But yeah, I mean, there was some pretty, you told us earlier before we started filming that, you know, you felt like you were really running over that table for a while and just in the zone, in the flow state, and then got coolered a couple of times and that was it. So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
I mean, so it's really funny how tournament poker works. It's like you start out, you're playing these normal sort of stakes, and then all of a sudden like the stakes are just amplified 100x. Everybody's emotions and their adrenaline is just going like absolutely wild, and like there's so many ways to run good and so many ways to run bad. But like so that tournament, like for just for hours, like I just could not pick up like a value hand. Like I said, like I think it was 3.5 hours straight I did not value bet post flop, and I won like so many chips just non-showdown, which is like it's the way that feels the coolest to win. You know, when you're just bluffing everybody hand after hand and you're just like enforcing your will on the table, it feels like, you know, like you feel so good, and you feel like it feels like it's so much more earned than if you just like make top pair and get 2 streets like 7 times. You know, if you just do that, it's like, okay, like anybody could do that.
Right. I know what you mean. You feel like you're really just like clawed your way there. You just
and especially in these big equity spots where like a lot of people don't have the
people are scared. Because the pay jumps. Like I was commentating that event, and I was just looking, and I'm like, for the people who play that event, of the 820 players, I would say probably 500 or 600 of them are like Aussie semi-pro or like rec players. Is that accurate? Or
probably a bit high? It's a bit high. 400 maybe.
There were a lot left. Like when they were down to like 30 people, I was just looking up results. A lot of the people had only Australian results. Like they don't even go to the World Series. There were people who it was their biggest score. There were multiple people where it multiplied their Hendon Mob results by a certain number.
For sure.
There are people with like $12,000 in results, and they're already making like 45K. I'm like, you can't count on that person to ever run a bluff. They're never bluffing you. Like if they're making 10K pay jumps.
Like the year before, I like this one guy, Clint Taylor, ran that. Like, he's just this random Aussie guy. Definitely not like a pro. He owns a business, and he just ran like a super huge bluff on me at the final table for like a ton of chips with like right when it first started. He just ran this huge bluff on me.
I feel like I remember that. Yeah.
It was pretty sick. Like
that's so rare though. Like I think when people are making just like 4 times as much money as on their Hendon Mob, they're like, oh cool, if I make another pay jump, it's another 20K, and then the next one's 40K. It's almost impossible not to worry about that, not to think about that, and just like tighten up and just hope. Like you're looking around,
I'm still tilted that I bubbled like the pay jump there as well, because like there was like a 3-way all in where a guy had a set, and if he just held, I would have just like made an extra 55K.
Yeah.
But he didn't hold. And then I bubbled the pay jump after that.
I mean, so I feel like, Johnston's a good friend of mine, and he got 11th in the main 2 years before he won it. And, he's obviously said many times, like, if he didn't get 11th that year, he wouldn't have won it, because just being in that spot so recently, and just being in that tournament, I'm sure it's similar for you. The fact that you had been there 2 times before, and like, of course, when he won, he was playing super aggro, took a lot of spots. And I think just being in that spot in the same tournament specifically before, it just kind of gives you, I don't know, some kind of confidence, or
you definitely you learn a lot. And I mean, so if you look back at my first ever like big score, it was a WPT in Thunder Valley, and I played that final table like a bitch. I was so tight. I was petrified to take any spot. Like, I mean, I was pretty fortunate that I won. Like, I don't think I ran any big bluffs or anything like that. Like, I just happened to be like fairly lucky, and the final table was very strong too. Like Olivier Sorel, Connor Drynan.
Oh wow.
And Stephen Tabb, who's like
I know Tab used to be my roommate in Atlantic City. I love Steve Tab. That's an interesting lineup though. Sometimes playing like a little bitch when you're playing with a bunch of like elite players who are going to be firing back and forth and taking every spot. Maybe that was the best strat at that table. Like, if you're in the mix too, like maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to make you feel better about being a little bitch, but
I mean, at the end of the day, I won. So
Yeah.
we heard you the first time.
It's hard to feel too bad.
It's anything I think we've learned is that, I think it's the people that go for it when you're in the final table, or it just pays off,
Yeah, I've sort of been like thinking about it lately, and just like a lot of my bluffs have not been working. And like when I like look back on them, it's all on like day 1 during the rebuy period. It's like, maybe I should
Nobody cares at that point.
I should just not bluff during that time. And then on day 4 of a 10K, when everybody's petrified, then I could just bluff every hand. And it's a reasonable strategy, like it really is like sort of that simple.
Yeah.
Bluff when people are afraid to call, and don't bluff when everybody's just trying to run up a stack. And
yeah. But what if like you just don't have any hands day 1? You can't just fold. That's boring. Then what are you gonna
Some
do?
of these tournament structures you really can
you're
though.
right.
Like,
No, I know. I'm just saying like
especially
also,
I can't help
WPTs.
myself.
WPTs start you with so many chips, and sometimes it's like 75-minute levels. You really can be card dead on day 1 and just like play your few value hands that you get, maybe run 1 or 2 bluffs and be fine.
No, I mean like fine in this. I'm just saying like it's like sitting there just like folding when I just like see a spot that I can bluff, and I'm like,
yeah, like when I open and I see bet with like air or something like that, and then I turn a gutter, it's just like just turning that gutter. I already know like I'm betting 3 streets.
I
Like,
can't.
If I turn a gutter when I bet with nothing on flop,
Yeah.
I'm going to barrel turn, and then like 90% of rivers, I'm just
You're like
gonna
already
blast,
getting
like,
your rebuy money out.
Yeah,
You're like, okay.
I don't know.
You're like, damn it, fuck! I know it's level 2, and this is an old lady, and but I have to go for it,
The biggest bluff I ran in Aussie Mill, it was like this kid who was like quite aggressive, Nick Mallow. He opened cutoff, I think it was. I peeled the button with 9-10 of hearts, and then the big blind came along, and it came Jack 5-5 with 1 heart, and he bet really small, like under quarter pot, I think, and I called, and I was already sort of planning to run it on a lot of like boards, and then the turn was a 7, and I was like, all right, here we go, and so he checked, and I bet like 2/3 pot or something like that, and he called, and I was like, well, that's unfortunate, and the river was a queen. He checked, and I bet like 40% pot, and he folded. He wound up having 9-7. But like, it was just like, I just see those spots, and like, I just know that like, I just love to just like to blast it in there,
It's fun commentating on you, because like I'll see the turn card, I'm like, here we go.
Buckle up. And like literally 3/4 of the deck gives you some kind of equity, and you're just like,
backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, like
yeah, backdoor pair draw. All right, we're gonna take a quick break now that we have our new co-host back.
Yeah.
We're back with more podcasting.
Now seems like a good time to give a shout out to our sponsor, Run It Once Poker. They just launched a pretty cool new rewards program called Legends. Every week, you can earn cash rewards that are applied directly to your account. Plus, they still have their popular Splash the Pot feature, which takes some of the rake and throws it right back on the table. With these 2 features combined, you can get up to 75% total rake back.
If you sign up now through once.run/play, you'll receive a 100% first deposit bonus of up to €600. And a big thank you to our other sponsor, Run It Once Training, the best place to learn from players much better than us. If you sign up through once.run/learn, you'll get free access to 3 of their elite videos, so go check it out. We are back, and our co-host has decided to join us once again. So you are you got pretty into health and fitness a couple of years ago, and you said it had a super big impact on your poker. You said that the day you started working out, you started winning. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I was in like a really, really bad downswing. My problem was always like discipline and like having like a romantic idea of like aggression in poker. Like we sort of talked about before. It's like, yeah, like I would just try and win every pot and because it was like the most like thrilling and fun thing you could do, and just like shut everyone else down. And that was like my whole like goal. It was like less to win and like more to just like shit on everyone else, which, believe it or not, wasn't a good strategy, you know? So like I was on a really bad downswing at one point. I was like pretty buried, and I just like, I felt like I had no control over anything in my life. So I was like, what could I do? This was like 4 years ago now. So I was like, I started cooking every single one of my meals. And I started working out just like every day. And I took like a 3-month break from poker. And I was like, all right, like if I just like cook all my own food, eat healthy, and work out, like I could control that. Like I'll be healthier, I'll have a better body, you know, like should have good mental effects as well. So yeah, I did that. And then about like mid-March or so, I started playing again. So I was just playing cash, and I like immediately started winning in cash. And then that's when I started doing better in tournaments as well. I started having like a bunch of like really deep runs. It felt like things were like so close, like coming together. And then finally that next year, like the beginning of the next year is when I like broke through and won that WPT. So I think what I really learned from this whole experience was just like discipline. And I was like, it was so much easier for me to just like make the decisions that I knew were correct. But like that river call when like this guy's like, he's never bluffing, but it's like a really good spot if he was, but like he's just never bluffing, you know, like it made it a lot easier to make those folds and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like, I mean, it just goes to show that we have the information in our heads. It's not a matter of not knowing the answers, like we always think we need to study more. I mean, sometimes we do, obviously, but we know the information a lot of the time, so we just can't access it because our monkey brain is taken over.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
if you can defeat that, it's really interesting that something as simple as just eating healthier and working out just like broke that.
I had a weird thing that I used to do, and I still, in the summer, I still would do, is like just not eat when I'm playing tournaments. And then I would just like eat it was like accidental intermittent fasting, basically, where I would bag chips and then just make like a really healthy meal or go out somewhere and eat good food at night. But I'm like not really cutting calories. You'd eat like a big meal. I'm not like trying to starve or something. But I just felt like my brain was working so much better. Like my instincts were better and stuff when I wasn't like bogged down with like you ate breakfast and your body's like processing that, and like maybe not enough blood's going to your brain or whatever. It was weird because it started out as almost like a superstition, and then the more I did it, I was like, this is too consistent.
Yeah, and it just
for
feels
it to be
good
a
sometimes,
superstition.
right? Like,
Yeah. No, it's so important. So, also, smooth segue. You were playing a little bit of private high stakes cash games.
Yes.
And told us you have some fun stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to broach the subject really, but like this is like
that was a hard left.
I know we like didn't have a way to transition, but we were like, we want 15 minutes of the good stuff, so we're just gonna cut that health and fitness thing short, and we want you to talk shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I just think it's all like a bunch of bullshit. If you ever see like the discussions on Twitter, it's always like people who hold the private games are always very focused on the fact that there's just some people that are just like awful for the game, and that's their only thing is to cut these very specific people who are awful for the game. But like, it's just not true in any way, shape, or form. They want to cut out anybody who's potentially winning. Yep. That's all they really care about is like if you're hosting the game, you just cut out anybody you can who potentially is winning in the game, and then you win more. It's like, it's very simple. And like when I play a lot of these games, sorry. like just like a great story I would think is so I played a game that like one of my best friends made, and this one like fish from LA was just like insistent that I don't play. He had never played with me before. Besides we played the night before for like 30 minutes, and the entire time he was there, he complained to our friend via text that like I shouldn't be in the game and that I was awful for the game. Meanwhile, this guy, sure, he's a fish, but he's buying in. It was a 25-50 game. He bought in for like $5K and just played like an absolute nit for both times that we played. Just played like an absolute nit, did nothing. Meanwhile, I was literally not trying to win. I was playing like old Mike. I was just trying to play as many pots as I possibly can because like I knew that like I wanted to be invited back to this game and stuff like that. And this is like an overarching theme that like keeps happening is that like I'll play a game and I'll play it like very specifically not trying to win. I'm still like trying to make the correct decision in big pots, but like throw all caution to the wind pre-flop.
You're being action first.
Just play like so that there's no way that anybody who's watching could think that I'm anything besides like pure action. And then and I like when I played a different game, like I'll go to that one later. But yeah, so this guy's just complaining the whole time, even after the game, and I'm playing literally double his VPIP, and it's like I'm playing way more big pots than him, way more pots in general. I'm 3-betting, I'm calling, like I'm not folding, and it's like I don't see any way that somebody could say that I'm terrible for a game while just playing half my VPIP. You know, it's just like unreasonable.
Were you? Did he just like get the feeling that you were reggy? Were you just not talking? Like what about?
I don't really know what it is. Something about my face. Jamie could probably.
I can explain this. That guy was just intimidated because he knows he's worth billions through Facebook. So he was like, I don't want to play with this guy.
What?
He gets called Mark Zuckerberg like 100% of the time in the Twitch chat.
Yeah, I almost wore it today. I have a white T-shirt with a picture of Mark Zuckerberg's face on it, and I busted it out and I put it on, but it was so wrinkly, and I was like, I don't want to just sit here with this like wrinkly shirt on stream.
If I'm gonna dress up, you need to dress up. I know. That actually segues me. I got kicked out of a private game. This is like 10 years ago. In New York City, I used to play underground games when I first started playing.
Which games did you play? Because I played you play Irv's
this
game?
Guy's Sean's game. I never did play Irv's game, but I still get texts. They're like, do you want to come to this game? I'm like, I really can't make it. Give me 10 hours. I'll be there. But no, I played in Sean's game and then this Wendy's game.
Okay. I
don't know if you played in those, but...
I played in one guy, Dave Spencer's game, and I played in Molly's game a couple times.
Okay. I know of those games.
I always felt like I got...
Yeah.
If you want to go deep
so
into
fancy.
the rabbit sphere, I always felt like I got cheated in that game. But I have no proof.
Yeah.
But like I never was able to watch the movie because I was like, man, I really feel like this fucking bitch cheated me.
It's gonna make you
and
mad.
then writes an autobiography where she just like makes all the correct decisions when it's really hard.
I know the movie also
pats herself on the back.
The movie was extremely forgiving of her. But that I got banned from that game because they were like, you're too tight. But I don't think I was. Like I was just winning. Like it was a very easy game, and so like I was just winning a decent amount. And the guy said one creepy thing on the way out too. This is like 10 years ago. I was like, cute-ish, and they were like
cute-ish.
They were like, you know, if you like dress a little nicer, if you did whatever, and he like made that comment, and I was just like, I'm good on this game. I don't need to come here anymore. That's kind of gross. But to be like, you either have to play looser or like dress cuter, and I was just like, I'm not going to do either of those things. I'm not going to like lose money to you guys just to like earn my seat because I wasn't playing super tight. Like it was kind of offensive. I'm like, someone will just get it in their head in the game that they're like, that girl's winning and I don't like this, and like let's just throw shade at her. And it was kind of shitty because that was my first experience with like the not fair part of poker where it's just kind of like, we don't really like you, so we don't want you here. Like I don't know. Yeah,
it's really like it's really frustrating. It was like live at the bike as well. So I was supposed to go on there to play like 5-5-50, which is probably like 10 and a quarter or 15-30 stakes or something like that. And I wound up playing in like a 5-10 game that like nobody wanted to make it bigger. And like if you watched it, anybody who watched it saw like I I'm peeling small blind to like mid position opens with like 6-4 suited. You know, like I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to be fun and engaging to play with. That's like my whole goal. If somebody like really dislikes my personality, it's like one thing. But like I've never gotten any complaints on that. Right. Like it's only the fact that like I'm perceived as a winner. so yeah, like that's what's really bugs me. And like, yeah, I haven't been able to go and play Live at the Bike since then.
Because once you're categorized as that, as like a player who wins and isn't loose enough, it's like so hard to get out of that.
Yeah.
You can punt off your stack a bunch of times and people will just be like, oh, that was just like one spaz. This dude wins all the time. It's just one time that he got it in bad like that. I think once, like, especially the people who private games cater to, if the one whale doesn't like you, you're done. Like I don't see you ever getting in the games.
And they just judge too quickly. Like you could just play one session where you like literally get 7 deuce for 3 hours and you're even opening like that, but then you're still playing on the tight side or whatever. And so they're just like,
dude, the streamed games are ridiculous to that. Remember I was commentating on your Peppermill live game and there was like 2 orbits went by and they're like, oh my God, Marley's so nitty. I'm like, she got dealt 6 high for 2 orbits.
I literally put Queen 10 off under the gun.
But it was nuts because I was like, I think people will like look at a person and think, okay, this is what I expect from them. And then they just fit every piece of info into that box and they just like forget. I'm like, I've watched you play where I'm just like, what is she doing? Like literally just like you once in a while will get bored and be like, I'm playing this hand no matter what and like find a way to win it. But somehow the people who think you're tight, they like looked at you and like, oh girl, she's going to be tight. Will just somehow ignore the like one super punty or like huge bluff that you run and they'll be like, whatever, that's not really her, that was just a spaz. Like it's hard to get out of that hole when someone says like, oh, you're a winning player and you're gonna be no fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like something in general about my face as well leads people to like several times. Like I have another friend who like runs a home game and he invited me, and this one time this whale came over, somebody that I know like quite well. And like as soon as she came in, she was just like, why is he here? You know, it was just so weird. And it was like I was with Russell Thomas as well, you know, so it's not like I felt like Russell would be the one to get that because he's like a little nerdier looking and a little more solvery. You know, it's like I've never owned PO Solver. You know, it's like I don't study very much with PO Solver or anything. Like I don't study much really at all. But yeah, but like for some reason I feel like maybe it's also because I feel like I base my personality off somebody who could take a joke pretty well. So maybe on some level it's a joke, but like most jokes are rooted in reality as well.
Oh,
you know,
man,
it's like,
I hope you don't really believe that because you're probably like, this girl's so mean. I'm like mean to you a lot, but it's always a joke.
No, don't worry, Jamie, I love you. But yeah, so it's like I just sort of get this shit all the time, and it's so weird. Like I've always tried to make it like basically where nobody has like a bad time playing with me, and I can't think of many people.
You were really fun. We only played together maybe like a handful of times, 3 or 4 times.
The Friday Night Poker,
you were so much fun. Everyone had a good time. Like you've definitely done some good advertising as like this guy will be fun in your game. Like he's loose, and some like I don't care if you win.
It was a 5-10 game. I put the 160 on in that game. You know, like I put the 160 on. I played looser than everybody except for maybe Frank.
Yeah,
you know?
But what's great is like you can be a winning player, and if you can make other players lose more. Like that's what I don't think people understand when they're banning like the action players from the game. It's like someone like you, someone like Kim Lim. Like let's say that you're winning at a pretty good clip, but you're also tilting people, you're making people stuck, you're making it more fun. So like
maybe I'm also not winning, you know.
Maybe you're not, but also like if you're creating action, even if you're scooping up some of the free money, you might also just be increasing the pots like all the time. So you're still good for the game.
It just goes to show that people kind of have these preconceived notions. This is kind of like a deep thing, but it's like people have these preconceived notions about different players, and they don't make their deductions based on their actions and the way they play. They just like have this narrative in their head and they just fucking don't pay attention. Yeah. It's like pay attention to what they're doing, not what you think of them. You know what I mean? It's like
and so somebody like me who is just like sort of on the fringe of like these private games and stuff like that. It's like I get the same deal that everyone else gets. If I bring a fish, I could play, and if I don't, I can't.
Why haven't you asked me yet? I'll help you get into any games you want.
Next time, Jamie. I already know you play too tight. You got kicked out of that home game 10 years ago. How am I supposed to bring you? But yeah, like I could be like a tight reg who's like bad for the game, and I could bring a fish and play, or I could be a loose reg who's good for the game and bring a fish and play, but I'm just not going to play either way. And so something that Tom Marchese said like 7 years ago that I probably should have taken to heart, especially by now, it's just like if you get an invite into these private games, like don't play minus EV in any shape.
Yeah, because you might not ever get an invite again.
You're not going to get invited back either way unless there's value to bring you there. And you're not going to create that value by playing like extra loose. Like they just don't care at all, you know? So like the reality is that you should be like try and be as fun as you can and stuff like that. But you really shouldn't change your game much. You should just play the optimal way, because like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and also like the being fun, you should just go with that goal anyway.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't always have to be money. Like that's something where I think that it's bullshit. The reasons they usually give why people aren't allowed in games with like, oh, that guy's got a bad personality, he doesn't talk, or what. Like the list of reasons are usually not real, and it's usually he's probably gonna win and we don't want a winner.
Yeah.
So just, you know, go have fun for yourself, and like also just it feels good when you're playing with people who don't get to play a lot, like to just make them have fun playing poker. It's like if the guy has one day off from work and he's there and he's like splashing around, it's like it's good for everyone just to make the game like fun anyway.
Yeah, a good example too is just like the Bellagio 1020 or 1020-40, whatever it's running at any given time. It's like it's a very fun game. Like all the regulars, like Chris Johnson, Simon, Art, Justin Young, these are all like really fun
Justin
people
Young's
to play.
always having the most fun in every single.
This is a great game,
Yeah.
but this is the classic example of like the game that gets poached for all these private games. You have a few bad actors who come in and they play this game specifically so that they could bring people into private games, because you have to find a fish to play. And then like, the same people will use this as an example of like, oh, these fish don't want to play at Bellagio because nobody talks and blah, blah, blah. And it's no fun. And it's like everybody who's playing there, except for a few players, are just like very, very chatty, having a great time, very splashy. You know, the game plays huge. Like even when it's 10-20, like most people are buying in for 10K. It's like when I play, at least I play like a 4-bet pot like every hour, you know, it's like, So I don't know. Like I just think all of the arguments that you used for private games are just like mostly bullshit, and it's just because like, and the funny thing is most people I don't blame either. Like I don't blame the people who make these private games or enforce them the way they do. They saw like a good opportunity and they made something of it. Like I think this was like a natural thing to happen. But what I really hate is certain people on Twitter, like maybe, I don't know if you run the poker room at Aria, you know, who just like talk shit all the time on Twitter about how like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like this is just what everybody wants. And we're just keeping out these few bad people. I don't know.
It's a bit,
bang, bang.
Oh yeah. it's a bit insulting too, if you've been like not asked to the game again, because then it's like they're throwing shade on your personality. And I just don't think that's true a lot of the time. I feel like I would rather hear, yeah, like these people want to play with like fishier players. Like, be honest. I know that they can't.
Yeah.
But it isn't a good feeling. Like, let's say you get a seat in the biggest game, and then next week you don't, and you just hear people chirping on Twitter all the time about like, oh man, like no one's even talking. They're so serious, headphones on. You're just like, that's not me. Like, don't make me feel bad about how I like behave. That's not part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really frustrates me, and it's sort of like one of the reasons that like drove me into tournaments. You know, it's like, for the most part, besides maybe a tournament here and there, it's like they have to let you play, you know, besides like maybe the 1 mil. But, you know, like they always let you play in tournaments. And like I have like people have the same amount of fun with me in a tournament as they do in a cash game, except maybe, if it's like day 4 of Aussie Mill, it would be a lot more serious. Like I'm going to cover up more. I'm not going to talk quite as, but I'm still pretty chatty.
Yeah. I was thinking that was a cool thing about the Aussie stream, is that people were kind of cool. Like, even though they're playing for almost $2 million, whatever, I feel like I don't know, like a hand would happen in between hands. People are still kind of chatty and like nice to each other. And I was like, this is cool. Australia just must be a very happy place, because you don't get that. Like any streams I've commented in the US, it's like there's money on the line. Everyone's like, it's like mean mugging each other.
I've always been like chatty in between hands. Like I'm not going to talk like during the hand, you know, but like once the hand's over, it's like I don't really care how much we're playing.
You don't have to like be serious. Yeah.
I mean, do you think it's more the fish that are having like these restrictions, or do you think it's the regs that are running the game that just
a good question.
I think it's the regs that are running the game. Yeah. And I mean, like in some sense, sure, like I would guarantee that like fish, like a certain fish has had a bad experience at Bellagio, you know, especially, so there's two different sides to Bellagio. There's the Bellagio outside of the World Series, and there's Bellagio during the World Series. During the World Series, it gets like inundated with like the really tanky, quiet like Euro eggs who just like it makes the game a lot less fun. But if I feel like outside of the World Series, if you come to Bellagio and play a 10-20 game, you're gonna have a good time. You know, like I always do, no matter what. Like I always have a good time, win, lose, draw. Like it's a fun environment. And sure, there'll be a couple people. You know, the Europeans tend to be worse at this. You know, like it's just sort of how it is. But there's plenty of enjoyable Euros as well. I don't want to talk shit about the Euros too much. I like the Euros, but But yeah, so like there'll always be a few bad actors in the game and stuff like that. But yeah, that's less of like, that's more of the fringe case, but like what every private game runner will use as their prime example is like the €1 who doesn't talk and tanks a lot, you know. But like it's somewhat rare. But like at the end of the day, it's like they're just protecting their spots, you know. Like, ooh, I don't know exactly what I want to say, but a certain person who is involved in the private game scene, I definitely don't want to say exactly who this is or anything. They told me that they view fish as their tickets and they don't want to give away their tickets. This is like more or less a direct quote.
Wow.
Because I was like, I'll give you a piece if you have somebody who could get me into this game or something like that. And the other were like, well, yeah, like fish are my tickets and I don't want to give away my tickets.
And that's brutal, because I think the people who think they're being slick and like that these fish don't know, like these are usually people who are crushing another industry. They're not stupid people. They're usually very smart people who've gotten wealthy by like being a CEO of a company or like running, being very like a lawyer, a doctor, or something like that. So I feel like that attitude, if you're even thinking like that and talking to other regs like that, it bleeds into how you actually treat these people. And like being condescending, you might actually make someone quit the game because no one wants to be treated like that.
I mean, they're doing fine. So I don't know. Maybe they have the right idea and I have the wrong idea. You know?
I just think, I mean, again, I also want to preface this. I actually play in a private game where it actually is amazing. And the people that run it they don't jerk you around. They don't call you in when it's two-handed. They don't do, and honestly, like it's really the only private game I'll play because of that reason. But so it's not ubiquitous. Like there are some good people out there, I think. But I think a lot of times with these private games, the regs who run it, they go down this slippery slope of getting greedy or whatever it is, where they just don't want anybody who's even remotely competent, capable. And it's like, it's not realistic to be in a 25-50 game or above
with
and have no
winning
regs.
players. Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like
I mean, and if you can get 8 fish or 7 fish in yourself for 25-50 or 50-100 game, I mean, like why wouldn't you do it? It's at the end of the day, it's like this is why I don't blame like the runners. You know, like the people who run these games. It's just like if you can just make a game with all fish and so you're just gonna win like $1,000 an hour, it's like why wouldn't you do that?
It needs to be the casino and like the room directors who have to step in and like make sure it's a little more level playing field. It's tough. It's tough for them to do too, because they're catering to people who like pay a bunch of rake, right? If you're like running the games and stuff, you're there rake. Like all the time.
Yeah. Tippy.
Oh man.
Maybe. They rake really well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Games. That's the kind of thing I don't know if like how to even talk about that tipping and stuff, because it's not like you'll ever see it. You just kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's very hush hush.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's legal for the casino runners to take tips. So or the managers and stuff. Like it's legal for them to take tips. So why wouldn't they? And then they find a way where they can make a lot of people happy, including themselves. Like, we live in a capitalist society. Like this is it's just capitalism. Like they've found a way to make private games more or less legal through some like interesting interpretation of certain laws, and then they're compensated for it and the other people are compensated. And, like, it's hard to say like what's wrong and right here, So like, that's why I don't have a lot of dislike for anybody who runs private games. I do have dislike for certain people in the industry I might have mentioned before, but that's more about how they handle themselves on Twitter. So
I wanted to go over one tweet that Marley and I found really interesting that you posted. I guess this was right after the Aussie Millions. And it was: the highs and lows of going from extreme confidence to crippling self-doubt in poker is really wild. Was feeling like I'd never win again. Took 10th in one tournament and I'm back to near delusions of grandeur level. And I'd like to think I have better mental control than most.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I like played it up a little bit, but like it sort of ties into what I was saying about how it felt like more earned because I was like bluffing a lot. It was like so like the past like 6 months or so, I was on like a really nice like win streak. I was playing a lot of cash actually, and I was just winning like thousands of dollars like every day, and it felt so easy, it's great. And then I went to the Bahamas. And like I just got crushed in Bahamas. I really shouldn't have gone. I sort of got tricked into going. Thanks, Kitty. But yeah, so I just got like crushed in Bahamas, and then 5 Diamond came up, and I busted a couple bullets there. There was a 5K at the win. So like all this stuff just like adds up, and you could burn through like 70K like real quick. And I did. I burned through like 70K real quick, and I was just like, every time I played cash, I started like losing more and stuff, and I was like, it just felt like everything was so hard all of a sudden. And luckily, I had the business to sort of like take my mind off it a little, and I was like not playing like every day and stuff like that. But yeah, so like going into Aussie like this year, it was like I had like very low confidence. Like it just felt like it was so hard to even cash a tournament, And then, yeah, it's like, so Aussie starts, like I cashed one of the prelims or something small, but like, yeah, it just felt like normal. And then I bagged like kind of medium-ish, I guess, on day 1. And then day 2 went a lot better. And then day 3 went really good. And even like day 3, I remember there was like one really critical bluff I ran where it was versus like fish, and I check raise flop like way too light. It was like way too light, and the turn was like a bad card, and it went check check, and there was like 1.4x pot back on river, and it was like a good bluffing card, and I jammed for like 1.4x pot. He tanked for like 5 minutes, folded, and then told me he would have called any size but all in. So that felt really good, and now like my confidence is starting to like really like get a lot higher and stuff like that. And then, yeah, day 4 come in, and I feel like I just shit on everybody, and then I get coolered like 3 times and I'm out. And like, when you really look at what happened, it's like, I took 10th place in a tournament with like it's not like some like fantastic result, it's like I took 10th place, but like I just went from the feeling where I just couldn't put it together to just like feeling like nobody could stand in my way, And I guess I would say that like technical skill, I am far from like one of like the elite in technical skill. I feel like when I have my game together really well, I execute really well. I think that's like my biggest strength. So yeah, when I get to this stage and I'm just executing really well and everything's going well, it's just like all of a sudden it just goes from 0 to 100 and you just feel like you're on top of the world. And like after Aussie Mill, I was just like, I just wanted to play tournaments. I was like, I wanted to go to Uruguay because there's a 10K in Punta del Este. I wanted to go so bad. I couldn't because I have a bunch of stuff I have to take care of here. But like, man, it's just like all of a sudden it just goes from feeling like you just can't win to just feeling so good. And like I said in the tweet, it's like, I really do think I have like, I sort of left it in the tweet to be open into interpretation. Like, do I actually have like a good mental aspect, or am I joking? Like I wanted that to like sort of like be a thing that you asked yourself when you read the tweet. But like, I really do think that I have a better mental grasp than most of like staying off tilt and on even keel and stuff like that. And
realizing that like variance is playing into this as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Imagine you get snapped off, you 1.4x pot it, and that guy just goes like, fuck you, I call.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you come back and we're like, hey, do you want to do a pod? You're like, what could I possibly offer to the world?
Yeah. or like the 9-10 of hearts hand, like if he's just got like queens and like, or anything, if he has anything and calls me, like, I mean, he had a 7, he's probably going to fold that, Like it felt really good to run that bluff, but like, I mean, I only got him off a 7. It's not like I got him off some like nut holding or anything. There was a hand the year before as well in Aussie Mill where I raised a limp with like 7-4 small blind versus big blind and like tripled off versus a guy who had made like a huge hero call on me the day before. And it's just like, it's funny because in my mind, it's like, it was sort of standard, it was like, it was a good hand to like bluff raise. And then flop came down, I c-bet, and then I like turned some equity and I just like barreled off with like a good holding to barrel off. But like when you get that bluff through with like 7-4 off, you just feel so good. Like it just feels like you're just stomping on people.
You're like addicted to bluffing. It is so cute. I'm like, I think it's awesome though, because I think going from that, how you said you used to be like way too wild and just it was just like an ego battle. You're like, I'm gonna make this person fold. Fuck them. I think it's so much easier to go from being way too wild and aggressive and then like get really a lot better at poker and tone it down
I agree.
than it is to go from
Totally
how
agree.
I am, where I'm just
Totally
I'm
agree.
I'm tight. I'm like winning at a very low rate. I'm like and then like to me it feels like so wild. If I get through like one bluff like that in a tournament, I'm like, I rule. But like it's not even within my personality to be like, I'm running 4 bluffs like on day 4 of the Aussie Millions and like going and 1.4xing it all in the river snowing. So like to me that would be like I would probably pass out.
It's something when you're sitting there and like you've put the 1.4x pot all in, and you know if this guy looks you up, you're out of this tournament. You know?
What do you
It's
think
like,
of in that time?
I try, because like sometimes you could get like really nervous, and obviously I am really nervous. I try and just tell myself like how good it feels. You know, just like the adrenaline coursing through your veins. It's like a lot of these people like they like live their life trying to get these adrenaline rushes that like you get from bluffing all in a big tournament, you know? So it's like yeah, it's like some people jump out of planes, you know, like I 1.4x pot the river. It was actually, there was a moment after Aussie Mill last year. This is going to sound really bad, but like sometimes I like to go to Bellagio after and play a cash session like right after, because it sort of feels like a victory lap, you know, like everybody's like, oh, congrats, man, you know, and like so I played a 5-10 session afterwards just for like fun, and I wanted to cement my discipline, because it's really easy to go off the rails after something like this. You know, like all of a sudden you're on top of the world and you just like so what happens in this one pot, I just play this ridiculous pot where it's like basically like there was like a limp from the cutoff and I raised the big blind with like king 10 off, and then the guy min re-raised me back, and I wasn't sure if he did it on purpose or not, so I just like I like re-raised him, and then he called, and then I bet flop, and then I remember thinking, I was like, okay, like I think he'll fold some stuff on the turn here, but I should definitely not bluff the river. So I bet turn and he called, and I was like, okay, time to give up. And then the river came, and it wasn't anything that changed the board in any significant way, and I was like, I just need to feel this rush. I'm all in. and like it was the worst feeling too, because he basically like snapped me with pocket kings, and like so I didn't even get to feel that rush for more than like 5 seconds.
Oh man.
And I was like, okay, I need to take a break because I'm off the rails right now. You know, but like yeah, I was just like, I need to feel that rush sometimes. I feel like after this pod I might get a lot less folds. You know, maybe
I feel like this podcast has been an amazing advertisement for you to be in every private game.
Oh, absolutely.
the last private
man.
game I played, I did bluff off like 25K over the course of 2 days. So
You
yeah,
hear that,
I mean,
guys?
it checks
Let him
out.
play in your game. And if not, he'll show cleavage. He said he'll do that too. It's fine.
I would actually prefer if I could show cleavage, but typically you don't get the invite for that.
Yeah.
At least I don't.
Is that good? You want to wrap up on that? Just a little light sexual harassment of our guest on the way out.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming on our pod.
Yeah,
Thank you
no
so
problem.
much. This is fun. See you guys next time. Thanks as always.